now that we've got our movable character and a little bit of a map that shows on screen, you might notice that as I'm moving them around, they can move through walls, which isn't ideal. So to fix that, we're going to need to add some collision to the map. There's a few ways to do that. You could do like a VLOOKUP, for example, to look up the player's Y position and then find the X position on the screen. I have found that there's a slightly different method that has a broader application, so we're going to do that instead. But just know that there's not like one right way to do this. To get started, we're going to pick a spot over here after the map, but before the player information. So it could be either a new row that you create in here or just something to the right of the map that's still above the player info. And we're going to call it What's Around the Player. Ooh, if I could type. And what we're going to do here is essentially a version of the screen where we have numbers along the top and side to determine X and Y, but it's going to all be based on the player's current position. So we're going to start here with player X -2. When I hit tab to move over one cell, player X -1, player X +1, and player X +2. Then along the side, we're going to do the same thing, but for the player's Y position. So player Y -2, player Y -1, player Y, whoops, hit tab there, player Y +1, and I'm bumping into where the player information is, but we're still technically before the X and Y get calculated, so this is fine. Player Y +2. Okay, so now we have X and Y values that are just around where the player character is, and I can even move them real quick so you can see how that changes. So now it's 0. If I go up by 1, it starts at 1. Yeah. So you'll notice, actually, not only is it updated based on the player X and Y, but it's always one step behind the player X and Y. That's because this is calculated first every time you make an update, and then this is calculated, and then this is calculated. So this is always going to look just a little bit behind, but that's totally okay for our purposes. Let's go ahead and, you know what, that does actually bother me, so I'm going to insert a row here just so we have a little bit more separation between our player and what's around the player. Okay, so in the last video where we made the map appear on the screen, we wrote this formula here, which is VLOOKUP and then a reg extract inside of it. What that does is it looks up the current X and Y position of a particular cell and grabs the corresponding number from the map and then displays the corresponding tile from our tiles list here. We're going to go ahead and copy that formula, and we're going to paste it in, we're just going to paste it into the center of this new square we've created. And we're basically going to do the exact same thing that we did for the screen, just on a smaller scale with X's and Y's that are based on where our player is. So this here, what is that, A17, we can remove that and instead click the middle Y value here. Looks like that's H10 for me. We're going to want that column to stay the same no matter what cell it's in, so let's add a $sign. And then let's do the same for the X. So we remove that, click the center X there, and add a $sign before the row number so that the row stays static as we copy this to the rest of the square. All right, there we go. Yeah, nothing's showing up right now, which is great. And okay, there's that tile that's 2 spaces to the left of the player. Drag that down. There's that tile. And I'm just going to go ahead and copy like that. Awesome. We can make that look a little bit closer to this screen. Let's see, let's change that to 18. Perfect. And we know that the middle is always going to be the player character, so I'm actually going to remove the formula from that cell, and we're just going to say player sprite. Just always show the player sprite. Awesome. So now as we move, we should see where the player is. And like I said, it's going to be actually a step behind. That's okay. I'll explain why in a second. So there's the previous spot where they are. Awesome. Okay. So now what we can do is we can update our X and Y formulas to only allow them to change if the spots immediately next to the player are empty. So to do that, let's go into our cell for X. We have where we're checking for the left and right buttons. We're going to change those from a simple true-false Boolean to an AND statement. So just before left here, we're going to type AND, add a parentheses. So if the player is clicking left and, comma rather, this cell to the left of them is empty. So only if we're clicking left and that cell is empty should we be able to move left. Let's go ahead and do the same for the right while we're here. And right, comma, click that cell to the right is empty, end parentheses. Great. Oh, okay. Immediately a bunch of errors. Totally fine. And it is because, look where the player is. Now that we've reset the X, it's put them on 0. So it's trying to figure out, well, what's less than 0? And there's nothing there on the map, and that's strange. So we're going to add an if error to our formula here. Let's start with the top left. Just at the very start of the formula, if error, and then at the very end of the formula, comma, and then let's put some emoji that we want to put in case there's an error. I like there's a, yep, here it is right here actually, the red X emoji. That's pretty handy. So we'll go ahead and fill that in. Awesome. And then we can go ahead and recopy that formula all the way across and drop our player sprite back in. Great. So now we don't get that error anymore because it is filling in some sort of emoji for us when we're off the edge of the screen. That's totally fine. All right, so now we can try it. We can move around, and we can still move vertically through things. Totally fine. We haven't gotten there yet. But if I move up to this wall, it should stop me. And yep, I'm clicking. We can see true false is changing there, and nothing is happening. That's great. Let's move around to the other side. Let's make sure we did it correctly. Awesome. You can't move left through the wall either. Great. So now we'll do the same for up and down. We'll come over here to our Y formula, and right before up, we'll say and, add a comma, click the cell right above our player character, and check if it equals nothing. Oh, and let's do the same for down while we were there, sorry. And, comma, cell below the player character equals nothing. All right. So now let's go ahead and reset. And oh, our reset puts the player character in the top left corner. There are some pretty slick ways that you could change this. We'll talk about those in a future video, but for now, we're going to go ahead and say, if you click the reset button, let's actually go to 3 and 3 to put them around here, just so they're in the map. Awesome, there we go. So now we can really play around with it. Can't move up, can't move right through a wall, can't move down through a wall, can't move left off the screen. Awesome, so now we have collision, so you can start to build mazes, you can make impassable barriers, you can make it so some of these tiles become blank at certain key moments so that the player can pass through. That's great if you want to have like doors with keys, for example. A lot of options open up now that you have collision.